Hello everyone, welcome to iFashi. Today we are dropping the part 2 of this tutorial where we will be showing us how to make this beautiful two-piece. Here's the one we made from the tutorial, guys. It's such a very stunning dress. I love it so much and I'm so excited to show you how we joined all the pieces together to achieve this beautiful dress. And in case you haven't seen the part 1, kindly check the description box for the link to watch how we drafted on pattern, how we drafted the front and the back bodies and cut out our pattern pieces. And then we also showed us these two tweed fabrics, and most of us in the comment section voted for the cream color, which we eventually used. Thank you so much for your comments. Today, we'll be giving us the sewing tutorial. Please, before we start, remember to subscribe to iFashi channel if you haven't done that already. It actually costs you nothing to subscribe. Just support us by subscribing to the channel and turn on your notifications so that you'll be notified of our weekly tutorials. And thank you so much in advance. So the first thing I'll do to my fabric is to iron this stay to the fabric. When you're working with tweeds, you know that tweed sheds a lot. So to prevent too much shedding, endeavor to iron your stay to your fabric before cutting at all. So now here's my fabric. We've ironed stay to the fabric, and here's the lining I'll be using. I'm going to go ahead now and place my pattern paper on top of the fabric and cut out. And when you're cutting, endeavor to add your sewing allowance. Here's what we have after cutting. I've gone ahead to cut out both the center front, the side front, and the back piece as well. I've added my sewing allowance on the sides except the center front. Remember, we have the button allowance already there. And as you can see on my side front, I have more than 1 inch sewing allowance. When you're working with tweed fabric, please be generous with your sewing allowance because this fabric tends to shed. So I've also cut out my back. Remember, I mentioned in the drafting tutorial that I might not be splitting my back piece into two, which is center back and side back. I'll just go ahead and hold the dart that you're seeing here. Now we have our sleeve. This is our basic sleeve. We already dropped the tutorial on how to draft this basic sleeve. We don't want to be drafting sleeves on every of our tutorials. So the link of the drafting of this sleeve is in the description box. Go ahead and check it out so that you catch up on how we drafted the sleeve. I've also gone ahead to add my allowance to the sides, and for the down part of the main fabric I added 2 inches allowance to use to turn my lining. Now I'm going to keep the sleeve aside and work on the front and back bodies first. Now for this back bodice, I'm going to go ahead and remove the pins and the pattern paper and mark out our sewing allowance and the dart allowance we have on our back piece. So first of all, I'm pinning down the center back from the neck downwards and then pinning the sides as well. The reason I'm pinning it is because I want to mark out the sewing allowance I have on my pattern paper. So what I do is just place a pin on these dart edges and use my fabric pen to mark out these darts on the fabric. If you don't have a fabric pen that can clean off with iron, don't do this with permanent marker, please. So I'm going to take out these darts on both the main fabric and on the lining. I'll also mark out my sewing allowance on the sides of the front before we go ahead and start joining. Now that we've marked it out, we know that we're going to hold these darts and join the two backs on the center back, and that's that for the back. For the front, I'll also use my marker to mark out the seam allowance I have on my fabric. I'll mark this on both the center front and the side front. Then I'll go ahead and remove the pins and the pattern paper before we go ahead and start pinning them together the way they are going to be joined on the sewing machine. Now that we've pinned our center front to the side front, this is what we have. I'm going to repeat the same thing for the lining as well before we take them to the sewing machine to join. After joining, this is what we have. I've joined all the sides that we just pinned. The center front to the side front, I've joined them. And then I did this on both the lining and main fabric. And this is what we have for the front. Now, I've also joined the back piece. I joined the two back pieces together at the center back, and then I also stitched down the dart that we marked out. Now, I'm going to go ahead and notch this dart because it tends to give it some squeeze on the right side. So go ahead and notch it on the curved, especially the middle part that is curvy. So after notching it, the next is to iron it. We're going to go ahead and use our iron to open up all the seams that we just stitched, right? And we're going to iron them out. Before we do that, let's work on the sleeve so that we'll do all our ironings at once. Now for these sleeves, I have 2 pieces of lining and 2 pieces of main fabric, as you can see here. So I'm going to place the lining and the main fabric right sides facing each other. After placing it right sides facing each other, you're going to see that the lining is shorter than the main fabric with 2 inches. When we were cutting, I added 2 inches to the main fabric so that I'll use that 2 inches to fold in the lining, to give the edge of your sleeve a very neat turning, right? So this edge is where we are going to stitch now. I've pinned it down. When you stitch it and raise up the 2 inches allowance, it will now align on the shoulder. So I'll place them right sides facing each other and pin them down and take it to the sewing machine to stitch before we go ahead and iron. Now, when you're ironing your center front, this curved part that is our bust point, endeavor to use your bust ham to iron it so that you don't flatten out the curve you have there. Now, this is what we have after stitching our sleeves. The next thing we're going to do on these sleeves is to open it out like this and stitch it upwards and downwards, which means the main fabric will be stitched together on the side and the lining fabric will be stitched together on the side. Just as you see me arranging on the screen, I'll take it to the sewing machine and fold it like this and stitch it upwards to the armhole of the main fabric and upwards to the armhole of the lining. And I'll be right back to show you guys. Now this is what we have. I've made my stitch on both the lining and main fabric. The next thing is to turn it out to the right side. The reason we did it like this is to be able to have a neat finish on the inside of your sleeve. So when you turn it out to the right side, this is what you're going to have. I'm going to go ahead now and pin down this armhole all around so that it will stay firm, and then we will now go ahead and iron. When you pin it down, it's supposed to align like this. If it doesn't align, go back inside to the point you stitch both of them together and give it a notch. That point you stitched the lining and the main fabric, notch that place because it might squeeze your sleeve if you don't notch it, especially if you opened your seam to stitch. Endeavor to notch it so that it will lay very flat when you turn it to the right side. Now this is the 2 pieces of sleeve we have. I'm going to go ahead and iron the seam that we just made on the sleeve. After ironing the stitch, I'll iron around the hem of our wrist so that it will lay very flat, and then I'll iron all these pieces that we already stitched, and I'll be right back to show you guys. And this is what you're supposed to have after ironing. All your seams are meant to lay very flat. Open up your seam and iron so that the outside of your job will come out very neat. Now this is what we have for both the back and the front piece. All our seams have been ironed. Remember I mentioned you use your bust ham to iron your bust point. Now this is what we have. The next thing is to work on our front piece before we go ahead and start turning. Now I'm going to arrange my front piece on the table the way it's supposed to be. As you can see, the center front is wide because of our pocket allowance. Don't forget, this is how it's meant to be after stitching. So I'm going to go ahead now and measure out the point where our pocket flap is going to be placed. From the look on the fabric, you can see that the curved part is our waist, right? So I'm going to come down from my waist with 0.5 inch, half an inch. So I'll mark it down. Remember, our waist measurement is 17.5. So I'll mark 18 at this point, where we'll be attaching our pocket flap, which is the pocket cover. We are not doing the pocket itself on this top. The reason is this tweed fabric tends to shed a lot. If I was working with a less shedding fabric, I'll do the pocket before the pocket flap. But we're just going to put a false pocket flap on this dress. And to know the point where you'll be putting the fabric, I'm going to come in with 1 inch on my center front. We don't want the pocket to push towards your center front too much, right? So we're going to mark 1 inch on the center front. Every other part that is remaining for the pocket should go towards the side front. So these are the pieces I cut out for the pocket. The width is 6 inches and the length is 2.5 inches. I cut 6 because I'm going to go ahead and sew round the edge. Now, I mentioned before that we are not attaching a pocket to this top because I don't want it to shed. Now, if you want to go ahead and put a pocket on your own, the link to how we fixed this pocket you're seeing on your screen is in the description box. Just go ahead and watch it so that you fix your pocket before the cover. The one we're doing here is just a cover that is on top of this pocket. So we're just going to stitch it to face it down as if there is a pocket underneath, right? This is the fabric we are working with. It's shedding too much. If I start to attach pocket to this top, it might end up shedding. That's why I'm completely removing the pocket to use a pocket flap instead. So the tutorial to put an actual pocket is in the description box. We've done that before in this channel. Now I'm going to go ahead and stitch the edge of this piece of fabric that I cut out. I'll mark out the sewing allowance and take it to the sewing machine and stitch. And after stitching, this is what I'm going to have. I cut out 6 inches so that when I finish stitching the edges, I'll have 5 inches left. So this is what it looks like. And when you stitch the edge, remember one side is still open where we turned it out from, right? So on that point where we marked our 18 inches is where we'll put the opened part facing the pocket flap upwards. And then you place it on that 18 inches point where you marked to put the pocket cover, right? So when you stitch it facing upwards, you now face it down and top stitch. This is what I just did. I've stitched it facing up. It's still facing up as it is, right? But I've stitched it. The next thing I'm going to do now is to take it back to the sewing machine and make a top stitch facing down. Make your top stitch very neat because this is going to show on the outside of your top, right? Now I've faced it down and I've top stitched it. The next thing is to iron it very well. This is what we have. It's looking so neat already. The next thing is to go ahead and iron it, and that will be that for this false pocket flap. Now that we're done with this, we're going to move ahead with the tutorial and move to the next thing, which is joining our back piece to the front piece. So placing it right sides facing each other, you're going to join them on both sides. Join the back to the front on the 2 sides using the seam allowance you put when you were cutting. Now, another thing I need to explain with that seam allowance, I added 2 inches seam allowance to my sides. This is because 1 inch will serve as my ease allowance and the other 1 inch I'll use it to stitch. This is a jacket. It's not meant to be extremely tight. That's why I added 1 inch ease allowance, except on the waist because I want my waist to be fitted. Now this is what we have after joining them on the sides. We've joined the front to the back on the sides. We did the same thing for the lining as well. The next thing now is to go ahead and turn the main fabric with the lining. Please remember to iron before you do your turning, right? Now the next thing I'm going to do is to turn my neck, both the back neck and the front neck. It's advisable to turn your shoulders first before turning the neck. By turning your shoulder, I mean join the 2 shoulders of your lining together, join the 2 shoulders of the main fabric together. I did this after joining the neck, which I should have done before the neck. It can be done both ways though, but it's easier to join the shoulders first. Now I'm going to go ahead and pin down all the sides that I'll be joining on the sewing machine. By all the sides, I mean the front neck, the back neck, and all the way around the down part of the top. I'm adding hemming gum because after joining and ironing, I want that front part, which is that button allowance, to lay very flat. You can also add your hemming gum all around the hem part, which is the down part of the top, so that when you iron it after joining, it will come out very, very flat and neat. So I'll go ahead now and pin down all the sides I'll be joining, and I'll take it to the sewing machine to stitch. So after pinning, this is what I have. I will take it to the sewing machine now and stitch down from the neck of the front down through the hem and to the other side of the front. I also join the neck of the back as well. What we have left open is our armhole. So I'll do that now and I'll be back to show us what we have. Now this is what it looks like after joining. I've joined the down all around, and then the two center fronts as well. They have been joined together with the lining, and the back neck has been joined as well. Remember, I mentioned it's advisable to turn your shoulder first. I didn't do this, I later fixed it, which is what I'm going to do next. You're going to take two shoulders of the lining, you're going to place them together, the right sides facing each other, and stitch the two linings together. I'm pinning them down now so that you know that this is the part I'm going to stitch on the sewing machine. The two shoulders of the main fabric will be joined together, right sides facing each other, and the two shoulders of the lining will be joined together, right sides facing each other. So I'll pin them now and take it to the sewing machine to stitch before we come back and turn out everything from the armhole, because that is the only part that is still open. Now this is what we have. I've stitched down the neck, stitched down the two shoulders as well, and the sides has been stitched. The next thing I'm going to do is to notch. Please endeavor to notch. This notching is very important. If you don't notch very well, when you turn out your clothes to the right side, you're going to have some squeezes, especially on the curved part. Now the first part I'm notching is my neck, the front neck, right? There is this part where we joined the sleeve down to the neck. We're going to give all your joinings a notch. Any part that has a thick fabric, you're going to go ahead and cut it off, and be careful when you're notching. Use the tip of your scissors to notch so that your scissors will not exceed where the notch is supposed to stop. The next part I'm also going to notch is the waist of both the main fabric and the lining. Because the waist is tiny, there is this very obvious curve there that might cause a squeeze on the outside. So I gave my waist a notch. The next thing is to flip it out to the right side from the armhole that is still open. Now, after flipping it to the right side, this is what you should have. It's looking puffy because we've not ironed it. Remember, we're going to iron out all these joinings that we did on the inside. Both the neck, the back and front neck, the center front, and the down part that we joined, even the sides, we're going to open it up and give it a good press. Iron it very well so that when you open it to the right side, everything will lay flat. And remember, the part that you put hemming gum, when you're ironing it, make sure to push in your lining so that it doesn't come out squeezed or start protruding on the right side. Remember, when you want to iron, the only access we have to the inside of this top is through the armhole. So you're going to bring everything out from the armhole and open up your seam and iron so that everything will lay very flat on the outside. And then after ironing, you're going to go ahead and attach your sleeve. Now this sleeve, we have a detailed tutorial on how to attach your sleeve already on the channel in one of the blazer dress that we posted already on the channel. So you're going to take the main fabric of your sleeve and sew it around the main fabric of the top. And for this upper part of the sleeve, which is seated on the shoulder, you're going to have to set it. When I mean setting, we explained how to set our sleeve in our previous blazer tutorial. So after setting the sleeve, to make it equal with the armhole, you're going to attach it to the top. And to attach this, you're going to sew your main fabric of the sleeve to the main fabric of your top, and the lining of your sleeve to the lining of your top. Now, you will notice that after sewing the main fabric of the sleeve to the main fabric of the top, you're going to find it difficult to attach the lining piece together the same way you just did for the main fabric. So what you need to do is to open up your center back, the center back of your lining. You're going to open it up so that you can access inside. It is from that inside you fix the lining. Now, after you've attached your sleeves, the next thing is to fix your buttonhole. Remember, the buttons are the ones that are inside, while the buttonhole is the one on top, so that when you button up, the buttons will come outside. So I'm going to do 3 things now: attach my sleeves, iron, and that will be that for this tutorial. Now this is what we have. Look how flat it's laying. Remember, it was looking all puffy before we ironed. I've gone ahead to iron round all the stitches that we just made to flatten it and make it look very neat. And also, look how neat our armhole is. The sleeves has been fixed. Remember, I mentioned you should open up your center back so that you can access that armhole, stitch it lining to lining, main fabric to main fabric, so that it will come out very neat. Now for this part that you opened, you're going to use either a thread and needle to tack it or iron it down with your hemming gum. After doing that, I'll pair this now with this skirt. We have a tutorial on how we made this skirt. Look how neat the inside of our skirt is. If you are still weaving your skirt in 2026, this tutorial is for you. Look how neatly turned it is, both on the inside and on the outside. If you're still struggling with making neat outfits, registration is currently on for our 3 months intensive beginners class. As a beginner, this class will teach you from the scratch, and as an intermediate student, this class will also help you to level up your sewing skills. The link to register for the class is in the description box. Do well to register because class is starting on the 23rd of next month. So guys, here is the beautiful result of the tutorial that we just made. Thank you so much for watching to this point. We've come to the end of this tutorial. Please remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. Kindly let us know in the comment section whether we nailed this dress or not. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in our next tutorial.